Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. जय जगन्नाथाय जय बलदेवाय जय सुभद्रमैया जय हो सुदर्शन जय गौरांगी बेंगलुरेश्वर जय गौरांगी बेंगलुरेश्वर जय गौरांगी बेंगलुरेश्वर जय गौरांगी जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा जय हो अनंत देव जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा जय हो प्रहलाद महाराज जय वामन देव जय वामन देव वामन देव जय वामन देव जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय शालिग्राम जय हो शालिग्राम शालिग्राम जय हो शालिग्राम जय निताई चैतन्य जय निताई चैतन्य जय निताई चैतन्य जय हो गौर हरि जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय हो प्रभुपाद जय हो गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव निताई जय हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताई गौर हरि बोल नित्य लीला पुरुषोत्तम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन बीबीटी संस्थापकाचार्य जगत गुरु शील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य लीला पुरुषोत्तम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada की जय। नामाचार्य शीला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। षड गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। भक्ति प्रदायिनी श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी श्री सुदर्शन महाराज की जय। जय श्री श्री नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय। जय श्री श्री मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। जय श्री श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री द्वारकाधीश धाम की जय। श्री श्री साकेत अयोध्यापुरी धाम की जय। समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। कलयुग पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक्स डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज। ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज। ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज। ऑल ग्लोरीज, ऑल ग्लोरीज, ऑल ग्लोरीज टू श्री गुरु एंड श्री गौरंगा। ऑल ग्लोरीज टू श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताई गौर से थनाथ प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतेरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति निष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So welcome you all in today's morning session of Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam's Canto 4th, chapter 21, entitled the instruction by Maharaj Prithu. And under that chapter, we are going to discuss text number 35. Om Namo Narayana. Let me share my screen. Hope it is visible to everyone. So wherever you are, you can recite it with me or प्रधान कालाशय धर्म संग्रहे शरीर एष प्रतिपद्य चेतनां क्रियाफलत्वेन विभुर्विभाव्यते यथा नलोदारुष तद्गुणात्मकः प्रधानकालाशयधर्मसङ्ग्रहे शरीर एष प्रतिपद्य चेतनां क्रियाफलत्वेन विभुर्विभाव्यते यथा नलोदारुष तद्गुणात्मकः प्रधानकालाशयधर्मसङ्ग्रहे शरीर एष प्रतिपद्य चेतनां क्रियाफलत्वेन विभुर्विभाव्यते यथा नलोदारुष तद्गुणात्मकः. Synonyms, translation and purport by His Divine Grace अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. Synonyms: pradhana, material nature, kala, time, asya, desire, dharma, occupational duties, sangrahe, aggregate, sharire, body, eshaha, this, pratipadya, accepting, chetanam, consciousness, kriya, activities, phalatvena, by the result of vibhuha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, vibhavyate, manifested, yatha, as much as, analaha, fire, darushu, in the wood, tat guna atmakaha, according to shape and quality. Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all pervading, but He is also manifested in different types of bodies which arise from a combination of material nature, time, desires, and occupational duties. Thus, different types of consciousness develop just as fire, which is also basically the same, blazes in different ways according to the shape and dimension of firewood. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly lives with the individual soul as Paramatma. The individual soul has awareness in accord with his material body, which he attains by virtue of Prakriti or material nature. The material ingredients are activated by the force of time, and thus the three material modes of nature are manifested. According to the association with the three modes of nature, the living entity develops a particular type of body. In animal life, the material mode of ignorance is so prominent that there is very little chance of realizing the Paramatma, who is also present within the heart of the animal. But in the human form of life, because of developed consciousness, Chetanam, one can be transferred from ignorance and passion to goodness by the results of his activities, Kriya Phalatvena. A human being is therefore advised to associate with spiritually advanced personalities. The Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12, gave the direction Tad Vijnanartham Sa Gurum Avabi Gacheta. In order to reach the perfection of life or to understand the real constitutional position of the living entity, one must approach the spiritual master. Gurum Avabi Gacheta. One must. It is not optional. It is imperative that one approach the spiritual master, for by such association one proportionately develops his consciousness toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The highest perfection of such consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. According to the body given by Prakriti or nature, one's consciousness is present. According to the development of consciousness, one activities are performed, and according to the purity of such activities, one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart. The example given herein is very appropriate. Fire is always the same, but according to the size of the fuel or burning wood, the fire appears to be straight, curved, small, big, etc. According to the development of consciousness, God realization is present. In the human form of life, it is recommended, therefore, that one undergo the different types of penances and austerities described in Bhagavad Gita: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Like a staircase, yoga has different steps for reaching the topmost floor, and according to one's position upon the staircase, he is understood to be situated in Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga. Of course, Bhakti Yoga is the topmost step on the staircase of realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, according to one's development in consciousness, one realizes his spiritual identity, and thus, when one's existential position is purified fully, he becomes situated in Brahmananda, which is ultimately unlimited. Therefore, the Sankirtan movement contributed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Chaitanya is as as, as Lord Chaitanya is the direct and easiest process for coming to the purest form of consciousness, that is Krishna consciousness. the platform on which the Supreme Personality is fully realized. Directions for performing different types of yagyas are specifically arranged for the highest realization of the Supreme Lord, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the Lord Himself. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is realized according to the proportion of one's surrender. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tamas tathaiva bhajamyaham. Bhagavad Gita 4.11. Full surrender, however, occurs when a man is perfectly in knowledge. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyante. Bhagavad Gita 7.9. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीगुरुं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरतिसे नमः पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते जयतां सुरतोपङ्गोरा मम मन्दमतेर्गति मतःसरस्वपादाम्बुजो श्रीराधामदनमोहनो दिव्याद्वृन्दरण्यकल्पद्रुमदौ श्रीमदरत्नागरासिंहासनस्थो श्रीमदराधा शीलगोविन्ददेवो पृष्ठालिभिः सेव्या मनुस्मरामि श्रीमनरासरसारम्भी वांसी वटतट स्थितः कर्षणवेणुस्वनरगोपी गोपीनाथश्रिये नः तप्तकाञ्चना गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So once again, welcome you all in today's morning session of Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we are, as we discussed, we are going to read from 4th canto, 21st chapter, entitled Instruction by Maharaj Prathu, text number 35. So again, we read the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is all pervading, but He is also manifested in different types of bodies, which arises from a combination of material nature, time, desires, and occupational duties. Thus, different types of consciousness develop. Just as fire, which is always basically the same, blazes in different ways according to the shape and dimension of firewood. Hare Krishna. So, in this particular verse, as Prabhupada is explaining here, in the first sentence itself, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly lives with the individual soul as Paramatma. So, just to give you the background of this verse, those who have joined, after a period of time or not aware of the context, so just to give the context here. So, here Maharaj Prathu is coming back from that Ashwamedha Yagya, where Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu himself appeared, and he gave instructions to Maharaj Prithu. And after that, when he came back to his state, at that time, all the citizens welcomed him properly. This is what I'm discussing about the previous verses. And and there are so many bodily features of Maharaj Prithu has been explained in the previous verses. And also in the earlier verses, it also being mentioned that how Maharaj Prithu instructed, the citizens, that how they should act, okay, and how should they act according to the injunction of the Shastras, right? And they should, properly act according to their situations or the status in the society. And he also said that you should engage your minds, your bodies, and everything in the uh, service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And that in the previous verse, Maharaj Prathu giving the instruction that the Supreme Personality God is transcendental and is not contaminated by this material world, right? And also that although he is concentrated spirit soul without material variety for the benefit of conditioned souls, he nevertheless accept different types of sacrifice performed with various material elements, ritual and whatnot. So the whole idea that Prathu Maharaj is giving is about surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this particular verse, he is explaining the one of the aspect of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is he is all pervading, right? He is present everywhere, right? Wherever and whatever you can see is nothing but expansion of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this particular verse, he's saying that he's also manifested in different type of bodies which arises from the combination of material nature. So the four aspect of material bodies has been explained here, that what is the combination which actually give birth to material body, right? The first is material, the constituents actually is being discussed here, the four most important, that is material nature, right? That is combination of material nature, time, desires, and occupational nature. So what is combination of material? Is nothing but combination of three modes of material nature. That is rajas, tamas, and sattva guna. So that is very important from the perspective of understanding that how consciousness actually develops, right? Because one may question that if Lord is present everywhere, then why the consciousness is vary from one body to another, right? Even in we see that the consciousness is the variegated nature of consciousness is very much visible when we see the different kind of living entities, right? When we see a bird and when we see a four-legged animal, right, and when we see aquatic, and when we see the trees and all, again they are living entity, but the level of consciousness is different. And what is the cause of this difference that is being explained here, right? So there's the different type of consciousness develop, because the level of consciousness is not same across all the living entities. It is varying from one living entity to another. So what is that cause, and why a living entity is actually having different type of body? First of all, we should come to that level where we can see that how different kind of living entities having different kind of bodies, right? And that has been explained here because of the combination of material nature, time, desires, and occupational duties. So whatever occupational duties is nothing but karma, right? So whatever the karma that has been performed, and the modes of material nature, the combination of modes of material nature, time, desires, what kind of desires that we actually accumulated in in so many lives, right? We cannot even count, right? So in those lives, whatever the kind of desires we had, whatever the activities that we have performed, right, and whatever the mode of material nature that affected us in predominantly, that actually defines that what kind of material body that we are going to get, right? And when we get a particular type of body according to the combination of the mentioned causes like material nature, time, desire, and occupational duties, right, the consciousness also develops in the same way. So it is being explained here that as fire, right, as we see that whenever we see fire, it is actually coming out, we can see the flames also, right? So flames are coming out to out of wood or any source for that matter, is that depends upon what kind of the shape of, if it is coming out of wood for example, then it depends upon the shape and the dimension as of the firewood, right? If the firewood is very small, right, the 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 flames that are coming out of the firewood will be very small, right? Similarly, we can not actually have much heat coming out of that flame, right? Similarly, if we are taking a big log of wood, right, and we lit fire into that, then we can see the flames are very big, right? Even the heat you can actually feel from a distance as well, right? And so much light as well, correct? So this entirely depends upon the shape and dimension of firewood. So how it blazes, right? That depends upon the dimension and the shape of the firewood. So now Prabhupada actually explaining here that the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Paramatma always constantly lives with the individual soul, right? So one may argue that if it is so, then is it that Paramatma is living with that bacteria as well, right? So that we need to understand that there is no distinction on the basis of the kind of body one may have, right? So there is no distinction on the basis of that where Lord is saying that I am going to live with that a living entity, and I'm going to live with that entity, and I'm not going to live with that particular entity, right? So Lord is present everywhere, even in the worm who is staying in the stool. Even with that, you know Lord is there with him, right? So we can see that how Lord is compassionate. He's not actually you know uh, having any thought of giving favor to one and not giving favor to another. He is equal to everyone, right? This is one thing we need to understand, and one aspect is that he is present everywhere, and he is present with each and every individual soul as well as Paramatma. So this is also being explained in Kathopanishad, where the example is given that on a tree actually there are two birds, right? So one bird is actually performing different kind of activities, and another bird is just observing, right? And that bird who is actually acting and on the basis of his desires and performing certain activities, that bird is individual soul or living entity. And the bird which actually sanctions or is observing the activities of that living entity is Paramatma, right? So similarly, this body is nothing is actually similar to that tree, right? And in this tree, on one branch living entity is there, and on another branch Paramatma, the super soul, is also there, right? So that super soul is Anumanta Upadrashta, right? So one who is giving sanction to the desire of the living entity, and Upadrashta means is also observing the activities of the living entity. So that's how the Paramatma is everywhere and with every individual soul. So now, again, Prabhupada is saying that individual soul has awareness in accord with his material body. So that awareness, or and which is he attained by the virtue of prakriti of material nature, right? So that's why it is said that the human form of life is a chance to elevate our consciousness, right, to the next level. Even if we cannot have that kind of consciousness where we can actually understand that this human form of life is very rare to attain, and this should be my last life. But even if we try to elevate our consciousness, then also it is good that we are actually going one step further, right? That's what Lord explains in Bhagavad Gita as well. Karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and bhakti yoga, these are four steps that Prabhupada is explaining in this verse. The purport, that the ladder, right, the yoga ladder. So at least we should try to get on the ladder first, right, to understand that what exactly we should do with our body, right, and how the consciousness develops. We need to understand that the consciousness is not same, it is actually different. Even in human form of life, we see that not all humans having the same level of consciousness, right? Even in the family, we see that not all the family members having the same level of consciousness, right? So that variegated nature of consciousness is because of the living entities, uh, you know uh, desires, and the karmas, and his what you call as attention or alignment with a particular mode of material nature, right? So we see that there are human which are highly affected by satoguna, and there are humans which are highly affected by tamoguna, and there are humans which are highly affected by rajoguna, right? So there are the qualities and different qualities and different nature of human beings, right? So it is being said in Upanishad that there are 4 lakhs 400,000 types of human beings. So now you can relate to this particular aspect, that there are 400,000 kind of humans, right? And that is with variegated nature of consciousness, right? So we understand from Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, 31st chapter. In that chapter, it is being explained that in the when a human take birth, right? So in general, they remain in the womb of mother for around 9 months, and it is being explained in this chapter that on seventh month the consciousness actually start developing. So what does it mean? The consciousness wasn't there for 6 months, or it came only in seventh month. The consciousness was there, but it was in dormant state, right? And in the seventh month the consciousness actually develops, and then at that time, the if it is written in one of the verse, that if the living entity, that human, right, if he is fortunate enough, then he can actually remember his 100 births. So then actually he prays to the Lord, right? So he prayed that I do not want to get out of the womb of my mother. I want to remain here, because I know from my previous experiences that once I get out of my mother's womb, my intelligence, right, will be captured by Maya Devi, and again I will fall in this vicious cycle of birth and death, right? So this kind of prayer, and he also prays that because that situation is very difficult for living entity to remain in womb in that particular situation, which is very difficult for everyone, right? And at that time, in this difficult situation, he cannot remain in womb of mother as well. So at that time he prays that, Lord, please take me out of this fearful situation. I do not want to remain in the womb of my mother because it's so paining. But at the same time he's praying that please do not take me out as well. So contradictory feelings are there for living entity. But ultimately he prays to the Lord that I surrenders to you, because you are Abhayadayak, means you actually only one available in this whole universe and in the whole nature, who can give protection to me, who can give shelter to me. And with those prayers, actually, we came out of our mother's womb. But as soon as we came out, the Maya Devi captured our intelligence, and we again fall into this falsely identifying ourselves with body. But what we need to understand is that the consciousness is varying from one body to another, right? And what to speak of humans, uh, even in animals you can see that some animals are very sober, right? And some animals are very, ferocious, right? By their appearance as well, and by their nature as well. So why it is so? Because of the uh, effect of modes of nature, and the desires they had, and the kind of karma they performed, and the time and all. So this is the four aspect that actually uh, is important in forming a particular kind of body. So Prabhupada is saying here that the material ingredients are activated by the force of time, and thus the three modes of material modes of nature are manifested. According to this association with three modes of nature, the living entity develops a particular type of body. So the kind of mode which actually affects us the most, according to that we develops a particular type of body. And again, I mean, Prabhupada has already explained in this verse as well, that again it's a combination of four, so not just one, right? So kind of consciousness we have, and kind of our alignment with the particular mode of material nature is very important, which actually a prominent factor which actually gives us a particular type of body. In animal life, the material mode of ignorance is so prominent that there is very little chance of realizing Paramatma. Yes, because there the consciousness is very much focused on fulfilling the four aspect of the body, right? That is ahar, nidra, bhaya, maithun. So their whole consciousness is focused on these four aspects. They do not come out of this, and that's why their consciousness is very at very low level, right? And Prabhupada is saying here that in the animal life the material mode of ignorance is so prominent that there is very little chance of realizing Paramatma, because until unless you come out of the consciousness which is focused on the four aspect, then you cannot actually realize Paramatma, right? Because they always think about, whenever the day starts, they always think about from where I can get food, how I'm going to fill my belly, right? So this is, their day starts. So we need to understand here that this chance of realizing Paramatma is only available in the human form of life. But Prabhupada is saying here that Paramatma is also present within the heart of animal as well. But in human form of life, because of developed consciousness, because the elevated level of the consciousness, Chetanam, one can be transferred from ignorance and passion to goodness by the result of his activity, Kriya Phalatvena. So, what kind of activities we are going to perform, that is going to decide that what level of consciousness we are going to get. And the kind of consciousness we are going to get, the same consciousness will be a prominent force in giving us a particular kind of body. And then Prabhupada is saying that a human being is therefore advised to associate with spiritually advanced personalities. Why it is being told here? Because the Prabhupada is saying again that the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad, it is said that Tad Vijnanartham Sa Guru Avigachet. So here Prabhupada is explaining the importance of Guru. But first we need to understand that a human being is therefore advised to associate with spiritually advanced personalities. So the kind of association we have ultimately defines that kind of consciousness we are going to have. So if we have good association, then we can have a developed level of consciousness. And if we have association, if we associate with the pure devotees of the Lord, then our consciousness will also get affected by that, and in due course of time we will also develop a spiritually advanced consciousness. So this is all about association. in the human form of life. So if we can have that kind of mentality where we can actually always hanker for the association of the devotees of the Lord, then actually a day will come that by association we will develop that advanced level of consciousness. So that's why we should always try to have association of devotees of the Lord. And what we should do in the association of the devotees of the Lord, we should discuss the subject matter related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we do that, then definitely in due course of time, our consciousness also will be purified and we will be promoted not only to the level of goodness, but beyond the level of goodness, the Shuddha Sattva. And in that stage, we can actually realize Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada is saying here that Vedas give the direction that tad vijnanartham sa gurum avibhagacheta. So, in order to reach that perfection of life and to understand the Prabhupada is saying that to understand this real constitutional position of the living entity, one must approach the spiritual master. So, and Prabhupada is emphasizing here that Gurum Abhivagacheta, one must. It's not that it is an optional thing. So sometimes people may say, take it, it's very lightly, right? Very cheaply. I will not use word lightly. It is that we take, Guru very cheaply, and then what happens that we dilute our consciousness, and in that dilute consciousness, we cannot actually achieve the supreme perfection of human life. So one thing is that first of all, we should have one spiritual master, and Prabhupada is saying it is not an optional thing, right? One must have, and one should try his best, and one should pray to the Lord that I get that spiritual master. Even someone is who is not actually having a spiritual master, then he should try to get one as soon as possible, right? Because you never know that when you are going to leave this material body in which you are residing. So it can be taken away from us at any moment of time. And if we are not having any guru, then our whole life will be a waste, right? So that's why Prabhupada is actually emphasizing the fact of having a guru in our life. So if we have that guru, right, then actually our success on a spiritual path is ascertained. And Prabhupada is saying that it is imperative that one must approach the spiritual master, and by such association, one proportionately develops his consciousness toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is no artificial way of doing it, right? You take shelter of, a spiritual master, and then a spiritual master actually gives you the instructions, and by following those instructions, our consciousness get purified. So, Nradeha Madhyam Sulabham Sudurlabham प्रवणं सुकल्पं गुरुकर्णधारं मयानुकूलेन नभस्त्वतेरितं पुमान् भवाब्धिं न तरेत् स आत्मः नृदेहमाद्यं सुलभं सुदुर्लभं प्लवं सुकल्पं गुरुकर्णधारं. So once this human form of life, Nృదేహమాద్యం sulabham sudurlabham, it is very easily we obtained it, which is very rare to obtain. We got this human form very easily. Sulabham sudurlabham. So plavam sukalpam guru karnadharam, right? So by taking shelter of Guru, right, he will be our Karandhar. He will take the burden of our on his shoulder, and he will take us away, or he will actually help us to get out of this material world. Plavam Sukalpam Guru Karnadharam. So we should make this human form of life as the boat, right? And who will be the captain of that boat? The spiritual master, right? So that spiritual master will be will be helping us to get out of this ocean of nescience, the ocean of material world. We can get easily out of this just by making the spiritual master the captain of our ship, right? So Guru Karnodharam Mayanukulena Nabhasta Teritam. So, if we are not taking the advantage of the favoring winds, right, then what it is being said here in this particular verse, that mayanukulena nabhasta teritam, one who can, who do not actually, take out of this himself out of this material world, then what he is, if he is not taking help of the favorable winds, then he is what? Atmaha. Mayanukulanya nabhasthatiritam. Then particular soul who is not actually doing it by by having this human form of life, then he is actually a he is doing is performing suicide, right? He is atmaha. One who kills himself is called as atmaha, right? So by obtaining this human form of life, if we do not actually give ourselves to a spiritual master and make him as the captain of our ship, and we do not utilize the favorable winds, and what are those favorable winds? The association of the pure devotees of the Lord, the association of the spiritual master. If we cannot take advantage of that particular association, then what it is being said here, that he is nothing but he is actually committing a suicide, right? So we should be very careful that we actually do not fall prey of what is being called as that we shouldn't be in a comfortable stage, that we always assume that everything will be fine on their own accord, right? Things will not, never be fine on their own accord. We need to make our effort. We need to make our effort to find a spiritual master. We need to make effort after actually getting the initiation. We need to make effort to follow the instruction of the spiritual master. So once we do that, then there is no doubt that by such association we will purify our consciousness, and in due course of time we will also get the highest perfection. But the Prabhupada is explaining here that the highest perfection of such consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada is saying that according to the body given by Prakriti or nature, one's consciousness is present, and according to the development of consciousness, one activities are performed. So both are actually dependent on each other, right? So kind of activities which we perform will actually affect our consciousness, and the kind of consciousness we have will affect our activities as well. So both are interrelated and interdependent, and we should try our best to perform those activities which are favorable for Krishna consciousness, and we should try to associate with those devotees or those people who having that elevated level of consciousness. So once we do that, then definitely we will be able to have our consciousness in the right position. And the example given here in his Prabhupada is saying this is very appropriate. So fire is always same, right? But according to the size of the fuel, which we already explained, that the fire appears being straight, curved, small, or big. And then Prabhupada is saying, according to the development of consciousness, God realization is present. Yen yatha mam prapadyante, that Prabhupada is explaining in the end, that the way we actually approach to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the at the level we surrendered to Supreme Personality Godhead, on the same level we will be having our consciousness. And Prabhupada is saying here that one undergoes the different type of penances and sacrifice described in Bhagavad Gita. So everyone is having a different kind of approach. Everyone is having a different kind of mentality, and that's why each ladder is meant for different levels and different kind of people, right? One cannot be elevated directly to any level, but with the help of Guru can do anything, right? One thing we need to understand here, that we need not to go through the whole ladder: karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and bhakti yoga, right? So bhakti yoga is the highest ladder, as Prabhupada is explaining here, that bhakti yoga is the highest ladder. But to get onto that highest ladder, we need not to go each one by one, but we need to understand that each one is having their own importance, right? We cannot actually ignore one for another. So we need to understand as Prabhupada is saying, that Bhakti Yoga is the topmost step of this staircase of realization of Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we cannot actually, surpass any of the ladder, and we can say without the help of spiritual master. With the help of a spiritual master, definitely we can do that, right? Because Bhakti Yoga is the summum bonum, and is having all other steps included, right? We need not to perform them separately, because Bhakti Yoga is summum bonum and accumulation of all other steps. So we need to understand that one is the elevator and others are steps. So Bhakti Yoga is the elevator, and the elevator is being provided by spiritual master. He can actually make us eligible, right? But if we think that by our own accord we can do that, then it's very difficult. We cannot do that. We have to go through that ladder of karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and bhakti yoga. But having said that, with the help of spiritual master, with the mercy of the spiritual master, one can be elevated to the bhakti yoga ladder. And Prabhupada is saying here that according to one's development in consciousness, one realizes his spiritual identity, and thus one's existential position is purified fully. He becomes situated in Brahmananda, which is ultimately unlimited. So, if someone having a thought of reaching to the Brahmananda level, then the only way is to develop the consciousness, right? So that can only be achieved by, as Prabhupada is saying here, therefore the Sankirtana movement is contributed or inaugurated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, is the direct and easiest process for coming to the purest form of consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So one can come to this level by Sankirtana movement. So Sankirtan is not just actually, glorifying Lord. Sankirtana is singing also, Sankirtana is jap also, right? So, if one can do that constantly in the association of the devotees, and without the association of devotees, if he's not getting the association of devotees, then also if he's performing, then on that platform he can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead in fullest. And Prabhupada is saying further, the direction for performing different types of yagyas are specifically arranged for the highest realization of the Supreme Lord, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by Lord Himself. The Supreme Personality of God is realized according to the proportion of one's surrender. Ye niyatha mam prapadyante tamas thaiva bhajamyaham. And the full surrender, however, occurs when a man is perfectly in knowledge. Bahunam janmana ante jnanavan mam prapadyante vasudeva sarvamiti sahmatma sudurlabha. So when we realize that, right, that it is very imperative for us to take shelter of the spiritual master. When we understand this fact, and after understanding this fact, after taking the shelter of the spiritual master, when we follow his instruction properly, then that stage comes where we actually see Lord face to face. But to reach that stage, we need to surrender ourselves. But the nature of living entity is such that we keep on postponing our surrender, right? And our surrender is not full surrender. So until unless we fully surrender ourselves, or until unless we fully surrender our consciousness, then we cannot actually expect that we are going to have the Brahman realization, right? To have that level, we need to surrender to that level. Then that's why Prabhupada is saying that Lord actually, reciprocate according to our surrender. So, ye niyathamam prapadyante tamastheva bhajamyaham. And one, to get fully situated in the knowledge of Supreme Personality of God and in the fullest aspect, then we need to surrender fully, right? If our surrender is partial, then the realization also will be in partial, right? So, to have the full realization, we need to surrender fully. And it may happen that we cannot actually surrender fully, uh, you know, uh, in a given point in time, but we should have that aspiration as well, right? If we should desire that, we should surrender to the Lord completely in the fullest way. If we do not have that desire, then we are not going to get the result in the desired way. So with that, I will conclude here. If there are any question, then I can take.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Danda Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Godhan Prabhuji, Dhanva.
Thanks for a very, very wonderful class, Prabhuji.
Thank you so
Very
much.
enlightening. And Prabhuji, like as you were mentioning, the degree of surrender, it depends. Like only one can realize Krishna. I can see face to face when he's. So uh, basically, because there are many instructions by Guru and many instructions in the six scriptures also are there. So what do you suggest? What do you think? Like is the basic one? If follows this is enough. Is in the safe zone, because there are sometimes there is confusion because knowledge is also is limited to individual. It depends on individual to individual, and how should how should one see this? Like this is the like this is the borderline. Like yes, you are in the right path that you are doing this. So can you highlight more on this project, please?
Okay, so if I got your question correctly, you are asking that, which instruction we should consider as life and soul, right? Which can help us, get the highest perfection of life. Is that the correct understanding?
Yeah, yeah. Like because everybody don't have the same type of knowledge and other things. That it depends on individual to individual. So basically, if we see that in the if we can highlight like saying that okay, you are in the right path, you are following this, and it will definitely go to that, because we don't know where do we stand in our bhakti. We're doing whatever the Guru Maharaj is saying us, but still we are puzzled. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope you got the
So
question, Prabhu.
that that doubts or puzzles actually comes when we don't have our faith established. Okay. So until and unless we have that faith firmly established, then the surrender, as I told, that surrender is not artificial, right? And it will come the kind of faith that we have in a particular process, right? So if we have our fame firmly established, then only actually we follow a particular path with all sincerity and surrender, right? So to do that, which instruction, because as you said that people having different consciousness and different level of knowledge, right? So whom we should associate with, then it is being said that we should associate with people who's having a higher level of consciousness, or they are in the higher level of knowledge, right? And we should respect them, and we should associate with them. And with those who are having equal level of knowledge, we should actually have a friendly behavior with them. And those who are lower to us, then we should impart knowledge to them, right? We should not associate, we should give association. So on the first level, those who are higher than us, we should actually take association from them, right? And those who are below us, then we should give our association, right? And when it comes to instructions, then it is said that if we just follow the instruction of the spiritual master as is, then there is no difficulty in achieving the highest perfection of life. Prabhupada said that those who are actually helping me in this Krishna consciousness movement, all of them will go back to Godhead, back to whom, back to Godhead, irrespective of what kind of service they are doing to me, what kind of activities they are performing in this process, right? So some devotees were helping Prabhupada in translation, some devotees were cleaning the temple, some devotees were distributing the books, right? Some devotees were cooking the prasadam, right? So each and every one were following the instruction of Srila Prabhupada. It is not that someone who is actually giving lecture is more dear and more important to Prabhupada, but the one who is actually wiping and mopping the floor in temple arena is actually not having any importance in Prabhupada's eye. No, it's not like that, because the whole emphasis Prabhupada was giving was on following the footstep of a spiritual master and following the instruction of the spiritual master, irrespective of what kind of instruction has been given to you. Prabhupada said that one who is washing the utensil and not doing anything, just following the instruction, because the Guru Maharaj has given instruction that you just wash the utensil. If he's just doing that, he will go back to home, back to Godhead. But one who is on his own whims actually acting, and is not following the instruction of Guru Maharaj, and he just, even if he is actually on the highest level of knowledge, right, and he's just doing it on his own basis of his own whims and ideas, rather than following the instruction of Guru Maharaj, then he will not be successful in his endeavor. So the most important aspect is that the first is that to associate, and how we should associate, as I told, that we should have a we should have a friendly behavior with those who are equal, right? Those who are higher, we should associate in in a feeling of respect and awe and reverence, and those who are below us, we should not take association, rather we should give the association, and all the instruction of a spiritual master are to be taken by as life and soul by the disciple. And if he does that, then he can actually achieve the highest perfection, irrespective of what instruction is being given to him. Does that answer your question, Prabhu? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Prabhu? So with that we conclude here, and श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, अमल पुराण श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्रील गुरुदेव की जय, समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताय गौर